Welcome into another edition of Across the Conference, presented by Allstate. I am Ari Tempkin, along with Sydney Staples. And on today's episode, we'll be talking about gymnastics, swimming and diving, and wrestling. Plus, we will give you our under-the-radar athletes across the Big 12 as we get deeper into the show today. How are you, Sid?
I'm great. How are you, Ari?
Great. A huge week.
Yes.
In wrestling, huge week in gymnastics, huge week in swimming and diving. Let's dive right into it. And let's start briefly by talking about the huge event, Behm, in men's wrestling. And, well, it's the 21st straight win for Oklahoma State against Oklahoma in Bedlam, so the longest streak continues. It's also the first time since the 90s that Oklahoma State has swept Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And not to be lost in all of this, but the biggest story of all of it was the U23 world champion, who is a senior in high school but reclassified to start already wrestling for Oklahoma State. Jax Forrest made his debut and won in 47 seconds.
It's amazing. It's amazing. The fact that you're going to make your collegiate wrestling debut with a takedown that early, it's, wow, exciting, exciting, exciting.
As technically a senior in high school.
Yep. To think that just a few months ago, you won the U23 World Championship in Serbia. In a few months from now, you could be graduating high school, but instead you're taking the mat, representing the Pokes in this big rivalry, and that is how you're going to introduce yourself to the collegiate wrestling landscape.
In front of nearly 13,000 people at a sold-out Gallagher Iba, and probably validating and verifying why he chose to go to Oklahoma State. Yep. He could have gone anywhere. Huge debut for Jax Forrest. And Jax can compete in 5 events this year and still take a red shirt. So that seems to be the plan for Oklahoma State. But they are loaded, and this is obviously one of the teams to beat in wrestling in the Big 12.
Yep. And when I look at whom else, had some ranked wins over other opponents for the Cowboys and, for the Pokes, and I look at OSU and I think of Alex Facunda at 174 pounds. I look at Zach Ryder at 184 and Cody Merrill at 197. So I understand when you're looking at kind of blanking out the Sooners in the way that you did. Impressive all around and all across the mat. Well done.
We'll get back into wrestling to give you full updates on everything going on, but wanted to kind of touch on some of the high-level stories first. On the gymnastics side, the biggest story would be that Utah gets swept, but by teams that have been perennial Final Four contenders, which Oklahoma, a perennial national championship team, LSU, who we saw win a national championship 2 years ago, and UCLA, who is one of the final 8 last year. So not a great showing, but we're talking about elite competition for the Red Rocks here, Sid.
That's one way to, I guess, get a reality check of where your squad is at this point in the season. And mind you, I think this goes across all sports. You're not wanting to peak, maybe now, but can you get a feeler for, all right, let's say that we are going to go to the Final Four on the floor. Whom are our competition going to be, and how do we stack against them? And I will say this, although Oklahoma, LSU, and UCLA did well in terms of that meet, I want to talk about Avery Neff and that perfect 10, the first 10 anywhere in the country, let alone for Utah, and it's her first 10 of her entire career.
Wow.
When I watched that ball, jaw-dropping, okay? I was so beyond impressed. You're talking a Yurchenko 1.5. She stuck the landing. That's at least one positive that I can pull from this meet for them.
And I will say, in watching gymnastics, sometimes, it's hard to have a critical eye, and you're watching something, you're like, oh, that looks like a 10, and it's like 9.5 or an 8.9. And that was one, you could just tell it was magical throughout the entire routine. I mean, everything was perfect, and you could just get a sense within that competition that was what was going on. So I think, it's an early season loss that's tough to stomach, but I think Avery Neff getting that perfect 10, we know what this team is capable of. It's a long season, so we'll see how this thing shakes out.
You know whom is impressing me are the BYU Cougars when it comes to gymnastics. They are so stout on the mat, and mostly they have such a balanced approach to what we're watching. So let's hop on to somebody else in the conference. Whenever I'm looking at BYU, I'm looking at the fact that they have a balanced rotation, and the fact that is something that's going to placate well. So maybe it's not some standout performances in one event or another, but the fact that they can perform well and consistent across all of them. I'm thinking of them as, in a way, using the word emerging for how they're really performing as of right now.
Yeah, no, that's a great call. And, obviously at this point in time, you're looking at athletic departments and where they're investing, and feels like there's a lot of investment being made across the conference in wrestling. You know, you've got Iowa State, you've got West Virginia, you've got Denver, you've got BYU. So while Utah's still the top of this conference, I think there's a little bit more consistency across the board coming on strong, which will be really good, obviously, for the conference overall. We will go under the radar. Plus, still to come, Herbie Behm, the head swimming and diving coach for Arizona State. Plus, let's get into swimming and diving next with Sydney Staples. I am Ari Temkin. You're locked in to Across the Conference, presented by Allstate. Welcome back to Across the Conference, presented by Allstate here on Big 12 Studios. Along with Sydney Staples, I am Ari Temkin, so great to have you with us. All right, so we just hit the mat, gymnastics and wrestling. Now it's time to dive into the deep end of the pool with some swimming and diving. We got to come up with some better puns.
You know what, but I'm not mad about them. If anybody's watching, wants to leave us some comments or something of how we can make it better, please do. Your input is greatly appreciated on this
let's maybe do a backstroke into the pool now.
Oh, no, I don't think that one's good. All right, let's talk about some stellar performances that we saw in the pool this past weekend. Okay, so we have Adam Chaney of Arizona State. He added 4 medals to his season. I can only imagine if I were coming home to my parents whenever I was doing swimming when I was younger, being like, "Hi, Mom, Dad, I got 4 medals." Are you kidding?
We'll put this one next to your Canadian bronze medal that you got at the Olympics.
Yes, I like the way that you think there. Okay, so his gold medal in the 100 fly by nearly 2 seconds. Okay, he set personal best in the 200 free and 100 individual medley, and bronze medals in both of those. So he has real bronze medals to my imaginary one, you know? And then anchored the team in the 200 medley relay for another gold medal, and he earned Big 12 Newcomer of the Week. I'm impressed by that, and I'm going to toss it over to you. Our Big 12 Swimmer of the Week from BYU named Tyler, a 2-pool record performance in the 200 breaststroke. Wow. Yeah,
Tyler Edelson for BYU. You know, we talk so much in swimming and diving about Arizona State, and for good reason. They're the class of the league, and you know, we will be talking later on the show with Herbie Behm, the coach at Arizona State. But, you know, the Big 12 Swimmer of the Week this week goes to Edelson, the BYU who had 2 pool record performances in the 200 breaststroke, 9th fastest in BYU history in the 200 individual medley. And look, the IMs, that's where BYU historically has been good. And so for him to place in the BYU's all-time record there says a lot about where he's at. And again, we talk so much about Arizona State, swimming and diving, but BYU is a really good up-and-coming program as well, especially when it comes to the distance and technical swims.
But let me bring another Sun Devil back into here because, again, they're one of the nation's best. We're talking Grace Lindbergh. Okay, she was the women's Big 12 Swimmer of the Week with her performance. The fact that she set a personal best in the 400 individual medley. She was 9th best time in ASU history. Okay, that's incredible to feel that you're actually in your school's history books and the records. And then she took home a gold medal against Grand Canyon University. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's it's pretty good. Herbie Behm will join us coming up in about 15 minutes from now, the Arizona State swimming coach. And what an interesting story he has. You know, taking over for Bob Bowman, who left and went to Texas. We're talking about some of the elite swimming coaches across the country. So cannot wait to pick Herbie Behm's brain, and also want to get some of your thoughts there. But first, before we do that, let's go under the radar here. Who is your under the radar performer of the week?
For me, it's Gabriella Martin of WVU. She is swimming at such a high level right now. I think about her in the freestyle, in individual medley events, and just all the wins in weekly conference accolades. She's somebody I'm going to be watching in the pool.
Yeah, my under the radar performer is Eva Jorgensen from BYU Gymnastics. Bars and her overall impact have been impressive. I mean, in BYU's upset of number 7 Oregon State, Jorgensen delivered a career best 9.875 on the bars and placed a meet best bars rotation 49.1 that helped secure the win. So I mean, it was not just impactful. It went a long way in helping to secure a huge upset win for BYU early this season. So I'm going with Eva Jorgensen, who is really helping to pace BYU Gymnastics to start this season.
Now, I want to prep you for Behm, who we're going to be talking here. He swam for ASU at a time where the program was cut. And in order for them to continue swimming, he'd have to sell raffle tickets. That is how they were able
I
to
mean, that's
compete
like
back then.
that's like little league stuff, right?
No
And
kidding.
going to the street with your candy bars, be like, "Hey, help our team go to this tournament."
Insane. So when I look at that, I see somebody who has seen the program at its worst.
Yeah.
And the fact that you are now the coach of a program that is known as one of the country's best.
Well, and not only that, but you were instrumental in helping to save it.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about having skin in the game. I mean, nobody has more skin in the game for Arizona State swimming and diving than Herbie Behm.
Yep. Yep.
Let's talk with Herbie Behm next. With Sydney Staples, I am Ari Temkin. You're watching Across the Conference, powered by Allstate here on Big 12 Studios.
Head coach Herbie Behm of ASU Swim and Dive. So excited to have you with us. Ari and I can't wait. I want to start off by asking about how exactly you established one of the fastest teams in the country in your first season as a head coach. But since then, what of these talented swimmers and divers do we need to be on the lookout? How would you describe this year's team?
This year's team is really good, like just substantially better than last year. It's pretty exciting for that. I think on the it's making a lot of noise nationally, but specifically on the men's side, our group of sprinters is pretty incredible. Like we've already had 6 guys under 19 seconds in the 50 free, which is first team to ever do that. I don't know if there's ever been a team with more than 4. But that's something that's really cool. And it's really cool to view it from a coach's perspective that, now it's just like it's a lot easier because they're constantly forcing each other to raise the bar. And now on the women's side as well, it's just a really deep team. I think it's certainly different from last year because last year we had Carolyn Bentz, who was like an all-star, and somebody who we could rely on like on any relay if we just needed somebody to dig us out. Caroline Caroline could do that. Now it's a different team to where there's a lot more depth, which is really cool. Like our quote unquote bottom of the team is really high, and it's like every person on the team really has a ability to make a big contribution at the Big 12 championship level. So yeah, it's been a ton of fun just watching that growth occur.
It's such an interesting story, not just your team this year, but your story taking over the program when you did. I'm just curious, take us through that when you found out that you're going to be taking over this program, how quickly it happened. Eddie Reese is obviously a legend, and then the domino effect of that. I'm just, again, curious kind of for how that all went down and when you knew and when you found
Yeah.
out.
So, well, the way I found out of being head coach was honestly as quick as everybody else, to where it was like, right after that, we had just won NCAAs, and then Bob texted the team like at like Sunday night at like 7 or 8 p.m. that he's like, "Hey, everybody has to come in for a meeting tomorrow," and it was like, "Oh, what's going on?" And then the next morning at probably 8 a.m., he is like, "Hey, can you come in like right away and talk?" And I was like, "Oh, something's going on."
Right.
And then he told me he's going to Texas, and he's like, "Okay, the ADs are going to come over and talk to you." And it's like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on." And then they
Wow.
asked me to be the head coach, and it was obviously super exciting, but it's also like from my time here at ASU, it's been a ton of fun. Like something I just shared with the team. So 13 years and 2 days ago, ASU won the first ever, ASU's men won our first ever meet since we were cut in 2008. And I was on that team. So it was cool because that was my senior year of swimming. And it was like, took the entire time after the team was cut to win a single meet.
Wow.
And it's cool because it's just sharing that with the team, and that's like kind of how I've been a part of it the whole time, where it's this constant growth. And now it's kind of shared that as a reminder to them that it's like, hey, this is a lot of hard work to get to where we are. We're known as a pretty good team.
Right.
But I think knowing that growth and like being on the team right after it was cut, and there was actually every single meet I swam at except for that one we lost. So we know kind of how it
Wow.
um, feels to be a very much underdog. And that's what I'm most proud of this team, is that it's always more about just like the internal growth and like, okay, how can we make ourselves the best we can, kind of regardless of who we're competing against. And now it's cool because that's I mean, getting some really good results, but I think keeping the focus on ourselves and just how we make ourselves better is the name of the game, and that's what we want to maintain constantly.
What makes something like that happen? To go from a program that had been cut, that you had to sell raffle tickets for in order to
Yeah.
be able to compete, to now one that wins a national title in your first year as a head coach. How?
Yeah, I think I mean it's always the community. Like there's so many people. It's really cool. We have people who are so invested in this program and have been like the people who now I'm super close with, who were the ones leading the charge and like had the idea of like, okay, we got to sell these raffle tickets and all of that way back. And they kind of always it's cool because I think it was never about winning. It was just about, okay, how do we preserve this? How do we make this something that we know it's really special to us? And it's always kind of been about us and what we want it to be. And like, okay, we have the ability to make it what we want it to be. And time again, and just doing that and that little bit of growth day after day has completely changed it. And I think that's attracted really talented people where, again, like now this last year in the transfer portal specifically, we had kids transferring in from who were already on really good teams who had had a lot of success, but kind of saw what we're doing and how we're doing it and wanted to be a part of it. And we've been able to make those ones a lot faster as well. And I think it's an interesting time in college sports, obviously. But now that our focus has always been on the individual's development, and that's something that I think we've gotten really good at. And that's why now we have people like you said, names of people to think about. Remy Fabiani is somebody who is, I mean, already a returning All-American, who was an All-American last year from Cal Baptist, but has, I mean, he's probably gone 15 lifetime best times already this season,
Wow.
which is pretty rare in swimming to do in dual meets and things like that. And again, it's rare for a 24-year-old who's at the very end of his career to make that big of improvements. But I think it goes back to just our philosophy and how we view things.
Is Adam Cheney another one of those guys?
Yeah, yeah, Adam's pretty impressive, pretty impressive as well. Yeah.
But I mean, and obviously with Bob, his reputation, Eddie, at Texas as well, like those are two guys that coach so many Olympic swimmers.
Yeah.
So the reputation helps to recruit, so how
Oh
did
yeah.
you sort of pick up the ball and run with it once, Bob leaves?
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly kind of selling the vision of what I just said, to where it's always
Yeah.
been it's always been possible here. Like I think we have everything we need to be successful. Again, in this current collegiate climate, it's sometimes like, okay, looking at what everybody else has, but when you look and realize, okay, we've got everything we need here, people kind of reframe how they're doing that, and then it's kind of doubling down on the environment. And that was something that
Mm.
I told the team as well, to where it was okay. Everybody had the option to leave for for a while, which it's funny because I always dream about, like, at least I always looked forward to being a head coach, and then you realize, oh man, I just have to convince like this is a crazy start of
Now
everything.
it's all on
I'm
me.
like, please. Yeah. So that part was wild, but yeah, kind of I think it was a really good thing, to where it's like, okay, guys, now we got to prove that this is something that we're doing and we've
Sustainable.
created kind of without the pre-established reputation, everything that Bob has, and that's obviously something he's earned and worked really hard to get. But then it was great for our team to say, like, okay, guys, we got this. We can keep the ball rolling. We know what we need to do, and now we
Mm,
just got to keep doing it.
that's awesome.
What is your team's culture when you are taking over the program and you look back on what it used to be versus what it is now versus what's going to attract more student athletes to compete for you in the future? How do you describe it?
I think ultra specific in the training that we do to where it's highly specific, individualized for them, and then as competitive as we can possibly make it. And again, that's like an internal competition. I think if we make competition about the just ability to improve oneself, that's really our culture, and that's again what we're constantly preaching, and the team is totally embodying as well. To where they're yeah being challenged to eat better, to sleep better. I mean, our team's GPA has gone up as well. Something that was really cool last year, we did the math on it, and our average GPA of the people who were top 8 in the NCAA was 4.08, and actually all of those people went on to win a medal at the World Championships.
Wow.
And then a group right below that, who was like 9 through 16 at NCAAs, was like a 3.85. People who made NCAAs individually was like a 3.6, and it was 100% correlated. So something we always say is how you do anything is how you do everything, and I think it's that standard that everyone has embodied here is what's allowed that, because again, like what we always tell them, it's like if you're training hard in the pool and then focusing in the classroom, you're just being kind of where your feet are all the time, and seeing the team embody that philosophy has been a really cool thing. And that's, I mean, I think why the performance has improved hand in hand.
Coach. Well, thank you for both Ari and I. We look forward to watching all of your swimmers and divers compete, and good luck the rest of the season.
Yeah, thank
Thanks,
you so
Coach.
much.
Across the conference, presented by Allstate here on Big 12 Studios. I am Ari Temkin. She is Sydney Staples, and just talked with Herbie Behm, the Arizona State swimming and diving coach. Great conversation with a great coach in the Big 12.
You know, someone else that we're going to be talking to next week, and for all of our viewers who like to see us getting to interview all these incredible names across the conference, be on the lookout for a wrestling interview again. You know, last time we interviewed somebody on the wrestling side of things in this conference, we got to see a lot of reptiles and really interesting things, but you're not going to want to miss Kevin Dresser, the Iowa State wrestling head coach. Stay tuned for more.
Yeah, Kevin Dresser's got an amazing story coming over from Iowa. Of course, Iowa State lost their top wrestler of all time, who was their coach, to Penn State. So, you know, it's been an interesting, musical chairs, if you will, with coaches in wrestling. So cannot wait to visit with Kevin Dresser. Thanks, as always, to Sydney Staples. I am Ari Temkin. This has been Across the Conference, presented by Allstate, here every single week on Big 12 Studios.